Well, I'm just going to wait. We still have another 2 minutes. So I'll wait. I'll have a sip of water. Hello and welcome. Tell me who you are. Just checking to make sure that everything is ready to go. Oh, it would be helpful if I put this into sleep mode. We're just going to wait for another minute before we get started so I don't have to repeat majorly, but you know. And it is a little chilly. What is it? It's 12 degrees and we have a 70% chance of rain. So I got to finish the light before the rain starts so my boy can go outside in the car and watch the rain. Because that's what's important. That's what he loves. Anyway, now there's two. We're going to wait for another minute. We're right on time. So we'll wait for another minute or so, and then we'll get started. We'll get crack-a-lackin', because I know this is a question that people ask a lot. So, yeah. Whew, yeah, it is chilly today, folks. Very chilly. I'm not a fan of chilliness outside. Well, let's get started. So today we know we're going to put those scenes into action. And before I tell you what to do there's a reason why Neville Goddard says these scenes are important. Because this is how we live our lives. We live our lives in our heads. We're always having a conversation. We're always having that inner conversation. Always. You doubt me? Try it. Catch yourself. It doesn't matter. Are you showering? Are you doing the dishes? Are you preparing supper? Are you at your desk at work? We are always having an inner conversation. So Neville says that inner conversation, that mental diet, that's how you're creating your life. So what we're going to do, we're going to make our imaginal scenes our inner conversations and our mental diets, because that's what we're doing anyway. And the way we do that is to consciously live in the end, like Neville says. So here's Shine Bright's question, because she had to go to bed. She wants to know if she can change her facial features, like her eyes and her nose and her teeth, etc., with your mind and your belief. Now, that question, the desire actually is to, if you sum it up, you can say, well, you just want to be seen as beautiful. You want to be seen as attractive. You want to be seen and appreciated and treated. You see what I'm saying? So it's the feeling of wanting to be attractive. So instead of looking at the picture of, oh, I got to change my eyes and I got to change my nose and I got to do these things, what you can do is you create your mental conversations, your mental diets and your inner conversations around this. So for instance, what happens is you could hear someone say, wait, did you get something done? Because you look really amazing. Do you see what happened there in that conversation? Or you can overhear, because Neville says if somebody's jealous of you, use it to your advantage. You can overhear somebody saying, she has something done, because look at her. She looks great. I should work up the courage and ask her who she saw. Like, you see what I'm saying? So when you're going about your day, don't worry about, oh no, I want to fix this feature. I want to fix that feature. No, your inner conversation is, wow, you look amazing. Or overhearing somebody compliment you, but they're too shy or afraid to come and tell you to your face. So they're going to whisper, oh my God, did you see her? She looks great, doesn't she? That is what your inner conversation should be like. Because the inner conversation, if you notice, she's not focused on what to fix. She's focused on somebody's already confirming that all those things are already done. She looks the way she wants to look. That's what her inner conversations are. Somebody stops her and says, my, you captured my attention. You're absolutely beautiful. Or somebody says, you know, you have such a kind heart. You are just shining so brightly from the inside. Your beauty shows on your face. Do you see? Those inner conversations that she's having. Another way you can look at that inner conversation is you can say to yourself, because you're the one having this conversation, you can be as exorbitant as you want with this conversation. That's the beauty of it, because what you are doing with your inner conversations and your mental diets and living in the end. Because remember, we're formless and shapeless beings. You are shaping your life the way you want it to be using your inner conversations and your mental diets. So it is more of a hearing in your imagination. You're having this conversation with someone who says, so are you going to tell me your secret? You can't possibly. I remember what you used to look like. What did you do? Can you just tell me? Because I would like to change some things too. Do you see? You're having that conversation. But the conversation you're having confirms the assumption of the wish fulfilled. That's what the last live was about. We have to expand here, right? That inner conversation always has to confirm the end. So if you're driving down the street and you happen to, because you check your rearview mirror every 8 seconds. So if you look over at somebody, you can imagine them saying, huh, she is beautiful. Look at that smile of hers. Ooh, lovely skin. You can imagine that person telling you that because you're imagining them thinking that about you because they're looking at you. As opposed to you're driving and you happen to look over at somebody and go, what are you looking at? Because we do that, don't we? What are you staring at me for? Well, instead of that, imagine them saying, wow, she's flawless. Look at that smile of hers. Imagine them saying that about you. So that's one example. So for instance, you want your SP. Well, here's how we're going to live in the end and have those inner conversations and that mental diet, because it really is all day, every day, because we're not always conscious or cognizant of what we're thinking or feeling, right? So you want your SP. What if in your imagination, you're saying, you know, I'm so glad I met you. You're so handsome, or you're so beautiful. Tell me again how we met. You know, I love to hear our story. And you're just having that imaginary conversation. Hey, Callie girl, right? You're just having that conversation with yourself. You know, thanks for the flowers, hun. You always know how to make me feel special. Oh, you were going for dinner. Is it a surprise? You see what I'm saying? These inner conversations, all they're doing, those inner conversations are simply confirming you are interacting and you have an SP. Do you see? As opposed to taking so long. How much longer do I have to imagine? This person's not here yet. Instead of doing that, conjure up, because I said your imagination, what you're doing in your imagination is shaping the experience you want to have. Michelangelo, when he was chiseling David from 17 by 6 feet of marble, somebody asked him, well, how did you know what to do? And Michelangelo said, well, I just chiseled away everything that wasn't David. So that's what you're doing. You are shaping your experience with your imaginal act. It is not, oh, I have to imagine, I have to come up with a scene. No, that's not what you're doing, because that makes it challenging. What you're doing, you're being like a child and you're creating your experience the way you want it to happen. So imagine then, because you might not be able to see the face of your SP, right? Or maybe you do, I don't know. But you're across the table from them and you can smell the bouquet of flowers. You can play footsie under the table. You can feel that. And you can hear them say, my, don't you look lovely tonight? And then you can be as cheesy as you want and you can say, well, I'm just a reflection of you, honey. Right? This is the conversation you can have, because when you're having that kind of an exchange and that kind of a flirtatious conversation, it makes you feel good. Like literally speaking, it feels good in your body. Because if you think about it, if you're having a negative inner conversation, well, it makes you feel bad in your body, right? So inner conversations are important. This is how we shape and mold our world that we interact with. So again, you want that SP? You can imagine you're grocery shopping with them and they say to you, oh, sweet treats in the cart, hey? Am I not giving you enough sweet treats? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Flirt in your imagination. Tease in your imagination. You want that new job? Then imagine yourself having that conversation with your new coworker. Your coworker says, oh, wow, what a pleasure it is to meet you. It used to be so boring around here, but you just are just a breath of fresh air. You know, that's one scenario. The other scenario is, you know what? I'm so glad you're here because I didn't understand how to do this and you really explained it to me. I appreciate that. That inner conversation that you can have with a fellow coworker that confirms you have the job that you're working in. Do you see? Because it's not just it's one thing to just play it over and over and in your mind. You want to act it out. You want to be a part of the situation because you are the solution. So what do? We looked at feeling beautiful and attractive. And every time someone looks at you, you imagine imagine that they are thinking, wow, her smile is so captivating. I must say hello. Imagine that they just have this burning desire to come and talk to you because you've intrigued them so much, right? So when you start doing that and having your inner conversation based on, instead of thinking, I wonder what they're thinking about me. No. You imagine what you want them to be thinking about you. Oh, wow, she's beautiful. Or wow, she's smart. Or I should say hello, but I'm so, slightly intimidated. What if she doesn't think I'm cool? Imagine that's what the other person is saying about you, right? Hi, Cynthia. Wait a minute. Is that the Cynthia G? I don't know. I can only assume, right? In my imagination, I'm hoping it is. Because that'd be awesome, because I totally think you're cool. Anyway, so now for the second thing we did, because that was the first one, talking about beauty and wanting to be perceived as beautiful. You don't always have to change your physical appearance. Change the way you are perceived by other people. Yeah, because A is easier. Path of least resistance, right? And so now, what if it's your SP? What if you're sitting out on the balcony having a glass of wine, a glass of rosé or Chardonnay, and you look over at him because he's looking off into the distance, and you think to yourself, he's like a smooth sip of cognac. Enough heat, That's how you're thinking about your SP. You're not thinking about where he is. You're thinking and totally interacting with this person. You're shaping the experience you want to have with this person. That is what is so fun and so beautiful about creating. Does that make sense, Callie? And so the same thing for the job. Instead of, oh no, I don't have a job. Well, you think about, you know, you want a job. Perhaps, do you know what job it is you want? Go from there. And then in your imagination, see yourself getting to work and hearing, hey, how you doing today? And when you leave, oh, have a good evening. Do you see what I'm saying? See and interact with the people in your new job, because that inner conversation and that mental diet does one thing. It confirms that you have what you want. Third parties are irrelevant. Third parties are irrelevant in the fact that you are the one shaping your experience. So if you are concerned about a third party, the inner conversation you're going to have is, ooh, how do I get this person out of the way? That's not what you want. You want the beautiful relationship. So interact with that imaginary relationship. Do you see what I'm saying? You could hear something, if you're so caught up in the third party, you can hear something like, oh, your SP can say to you, you know what? You're the best fit for me. I'm glad you came along. I've had experiences before. I've met other people before. I've dated other people before, but you are incredible. Do you see? So you're kind of sort of acknowledging the third party, but the focus is not the third party. The focus here is the interaction you are having in your imaginary act with your special person, because that is what you want. You don't want to have a relationship where you got baby mama drama. Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, mental diet and mental conversations are the same thing, because you have to feed yourself one of those things. So if you're feeding yourself the mental diet, this is why the imaginary act is so important, because it does a number of things. If you focus on the end, if you live in the end, right, you only create the scene and you only act out the scene that confirms the end. And when you act out the scene that confirms the end, well, the inner conversation and the mental diet will be you acting out these imaginary things, like imaginary tea between you and your small child, like the Rock and his small child. They're having imaginary tea and they're having a full-blown conversation. But those little conversations, that's what Neville says, shape our world. So we did being attractive and being perceived as attractive by other people, those inner conversations. Wow, she looks amazing. What's her secret? Hey, you know, I saw you from across the room. Your skin glows. What's your skin regimen? What do you do? Do you see that inner conversation? Do you see that mental diet? Hey, Ms. M. But do you see that mental diet and that inner conversation that you're having? That's what you do, right? To be perceived as attractive. The second thing was your SP. And here's the thing that people don't get all the time. You're like, we do it all the time though, right? Your SP could be in the other room and you can hear yourself say, hey, babes, can you bring whatever it is you want this person to bring for you? Well, what does that inner conversation do? That inner conversation confirms that you are in a relationship, and a relationship that you enjoy. Because when you conjure up, you're having dinner and he or she's saying sweet nothings, and just, you know, how people can tell you stupid shit like, oh, girl, you look so good, I could just nibble you for dinner. That's what I mean. You want passion and romance in your relationship, then those are the things you imagine. Imagine it already happening, which means you are participating in that conversation. I feel like I'm losing my clothes here. You want to imagine that conversation, because when you are having that inner conversation, again, that inner conversation and that mental diet, the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Right, you see, Kelly? That's what I'm trying to say. He could say that to you, or you could say that to him. But that's the point, right? You hear him say it or you say it, and all of a sudden you just go off on this beautiful tangent of, ooh, you know how to make a girl feel so good, honey. Do you see what I'm saying? All of a sudden, you've carried on an inner conversation for 20 minutes to confirm the assumption of your wish fulfilled. And the more you do that, the more natural it becomes. And then you know what happens? There's the relationship, because you're shaping it and forming it. Those, you know what? Inner conversations are a way of life, because you're always talking to yourself. You're always talking to yourself. Here's an example for me, because you know I'm a chatty Cathy. It's either I'm in the bathroom mirror, right? See, but that's what you're supposed to do, Callie. These are conversations you have all the time. For me, I'm either in the bathroom mirror or my bedroom mirror, and I am teaching an auditorium full of people. Do you see what I'm saying? And I'm just having the topic, and I'm talking, and I'm answering questions as they throw the questions out of the audience to me. That's what I do in my imagination. I feel it, I see it. Well, what can you do? Here's the question. My SP went cold after being very into me. I know it's my mind doing that, but what can I do to revert it? Now, this is a twofold answer. Hey, B-Floss, let me answer this, and I'll jump in there with you for a second. This is twofold. I always tell people we have a natural progression. For instance, if you are a tenant, if you're renting somewhere, then the natural progression would be to one day own. That is a natural progression. So the SP that you had, or the SP that you want, is a natural progression based on who you are currently. So I always ask myself the question, do you want them back, or do you just want better? So if you want them back, then you have those inner conversations with that person, that interaction, because you can see them, you know what their cologne smells like. You see what I'm saying? But if you don't want them back, you just actually want a beautiful and healthy relationship, then you have that inner conversation with that person, that inner conversation, that inner dialogue, that mental diet with that person. You know, you say, like, for instance, my grandfather used to call my grandmother every day at lunch. Every day at lunch. I was a child growing up, I saw it. Every day at lunch, I knew when the phone rang who it was. And they'd talk. So I thought to myself, well, I would like that in an SP. I'd like to have a lunchtime conversation with them. And so what you do in your imagination when you're having that inner conversation, you say, hey, babes, what's for lunch? You know, that's the first question you're going to ask. Well, what's for lunch? Are you going to swing by? Are you outside? You know, that's the inner conversation you have. You want this inner conversation to be fun, exciting, especially if you're flirting. You want to renew the woo. You see what I'm saying? So to revert back to what you want, have that inner conversation. Have that conversation with this person and hear them say to you, yeah, you know, I was going through some stuff and I was just getting myself together. I apologize for being so cold about it, you know, and then hearing them say to you, well, is that okay if I call you tomorrow at this time? Or do you want to meet for tea? Do you see what I'm saying? To have that inner conversation. Or what is the end? What do you want out of this contact? What do you want out of the contact? Your inner conversations and your mental diets must always be in the end, which confirms the fulfillment of your desire. That's what those inner conversations and mental diets are for. They're supposed to confirm you have what you want. So do you just want a text? What if you want marriage? That's the easy part, right? So now let's script this, because Neville says you are the producer, you are the director, you're the author, and you are the actor. So the producer gives you the theme. The theme is marriage and a family. And I presume it is a happy marriage, because that's what we want, right? A happy marriage and a beautiful family. That's what you want. The director says, okay, let me try and paint the picture of what the author wants. And the author comes along and says, the writer comes along and says to the director, okay, so we want happiness, we want fun, we want romance, we want lots of babies, we want outings and excursions, right? So the director walks you through a scene and says, here's the scene. In your imagination, you see and hear, hun, we're going to be late for that picnic. Did you pack the diapers? Two things are happening here. You are confirming, right? Yeah, you're all the parts. The mighty four. Seed Time and Harvest, chapter 2. You're playing all the parts. So in your imagination, if you say, hey, hun, we're going to be late. Do we have the diapers? Did you put the baby in the car? Is the cooler in the car? Is the dog in the car? Like, do you see what I'm saying? That's part of the inner conversation that you want. Because that means, A, you're happily married because you're going on a picnic. And B, did you remember the dog and the baby? Because, do you see? And you've got the banter here. You're driving now. You're going to the picnic in your imagination. And you're having this conversation. The baby's babbling in the back. You're holding hands in the front seat. Can you feel that? Right? Now, back in the day, these are two things that are totally bad. If you want to have the spice in there, you can have this person's hand on your thigh. You can feel that as you're driving with them. Because now you are not watching this happen. You are partaking in it because it's your leg and it's your hand on their thigh, if that's how you want to do it. So these are just things where your imaginary act and your inner conversations and your mental diets are all the same thing. And they do one thing. They confirm that your desire has been fulfilled. Or if you're going on an outing now, where you're going to your in-laws' house. Oh, I can't wait to see my mother-in-law, I can't wait to see your mom. We're probably going to bake again. I just totally love her, which means you get along with your in-laws. You see? That's right. Or you can have a date night in your imagination. Okay, so mom's going to be here to babysit, right? We got to leave at 7 o'clock. All those little imaginary things that would happen, those are things that you would do as a married woman with a small baby because you want to keep the spice in your marriage, right? So then your mother-in-law is coming over. You love to see her. She loves to see you. Why? Because you have a happy marriage and you get along with your in-laws. That all constitutes a happy marriage. That's how you build your scene. But it's not a static scene. It's not a static scene. You make it alive. You breathe life into it by being a part of it, by acting it out. And this is where someone mentioned to me about acting classes. Let me see if I can get the correct words here so that I'm right. Method acting. That's what it is. Right? Somebody thought method acting. And I'm like, but that's what we do all day, every day. And we do it naturally already. We do it with things we don't like. Aw, thanks, Cynthia. But we do it with things that we don't like. So why not do it with things that we do like, right? If you want the excitement and the thrill, then act that out. Don't be so serious. Do you see what I'm saying here? Like when you're putting that scene together, like for instance, if you want your SP to have fireworks when he proposes to you, like to, pay for fireworks and have that happen. That's an example. You know what you could do in your imagination? You could be on the couch and you could lean into him and you could say, you know what? That was the sweetest thing you did. Those were the most beautiful fireworks I'd ever seen. And they almost sparkled as lovely as my ring did. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? So to answer your question, Cynthia, is it more effective before bed? Neville says, right? The best time is before bed and shortly after waking up to play that scene. But you don't have to do just one scene, right? Because as I know for myself, like when I'm going through the day, there are many scenes I can conjure up to confirm any desire I want. So I just go with them all and I do them all day, every day, because truthfully, we are always in a state akin to sleep, as I mentioned. We are always in that imagination, always. Even right now, when you're listening to me, you are in your imagination doing something, right? So before bed and just after waking up, most beautiful times, because your brain is in theta brain waves. However, when you're showering, when you're driving along a familiar route, you're also in theta. When you're at work and you're doing data entry, anything that is autopilot is theta. Because all you're doing is recalling information. You're not taking in anything new. You're just recalling the information, right? And so that's why I know science now is saying that the brain doesn't know what's real and what is imaginary. Like you're at the theater and something scares you. You thought that was real, so you told your brain it was real. Your brain knows what's real because you tell it what's real. And that's why, so you do it before bed and after waking up. But then if you are faced with any doubt during the day, go back and do your imaginary scene. Always do your imaginary scene. Always redirect yourself from what you don't want to what you do want. Because it is in that redirection that you form your inner conversations, you form your mental diet, and then you manifest what it is that you're playing over and over and over in your head. That's what that is. It's full circle. It really, really is. Does that make sense? The thing that came to me a little while ago for consciousness, because there is only consciousness, but consciousness defines what it wants to be. Consciousness defines what it wants to be so that you can say, I am that. I am. That's what consciousness does. That's what you are. Does that make sense on how you create your scene? Because the scene is so, I think we get caught up in the seriousness of things instead of having fun with it, you know? These scenes, you should always be imagining, especially when Neville says it's the frequency by which you imagine the thing that causes it to become more natural. One other question I always get is, well, how come these certain things seem to manifest really quickly, and when I really, really want something, it doesn't manifest? Or there's a delay. The other thing is manifesting because That's the state that you're in. That's the inner conversation that you consistently have over and over and over and over and over. Right? So, of course, because it's natural to you, it shows up quicker. So that's why when you are creating your new inner conversations, your new mental diets, your new scenes, because that's what they are. Scenes, mental diets, inner conversations are all the same thing, because I'll tell you why they're the same thing. If you are having fun and creating and acting out these scenes with your SP, you don't have time to feel undesirable. You don't have time to question and say, I'm not good enough. You don't have time to say, nobody wants me. You don't have time to say, well, yeah, everybody always leaves. You don't have time for that. You know why you don't have time for that? Because you are focused on the end. And law number 5, cause and effect. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. So you want to change your self-concept, focus on the outcome. Focus on the end. Because what happens, you get your reward. That repetition of training the mind brings you a reward of you realizing your manifestation. And another thing that happens is, Neville says sometimes when we get our harvest, we forget that we planted those seeds. But if you're having that inner conversation, right? Oh, honey, I love you so much. Didn't we make beautiful babies? Or you can say what my grandmother told me that I always remembered. If he didn't go away, I would have had more than 8 children. So that's what you say to him. Hey, how many babies we have in here? You know, it denotes passion and excitement in your marriage. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's it. Training the mind with I am. But I am is always. I am is always. Right? So get into the mood. Get into the mood. You don't want to just drive home and walk in the door and throw your keys on the table and your SP says, hey, babe, how was your day? And you're like, So why would you be that in your imagination? You wouldn't. This is a pleasurable experience. And so when you take the time to create those short scenes and that inner conversation and that mental diet, again, you don't have time to worry about when it's coming because it's already there. It's already there. You don't fret. You don't worry because you are having too much fun playing your part. And so when your harvest shows up, you're like, hey, because you know why? You'll hear one of those key phrases that you played out in your imagination. Oh, wow, look at that gorgeous smile. Oh, well, aren't you beautiful? Hun, did you put the baby in the car? You're going to hear one of those things that you acted out in your real world. And that's how you'll know your harvest has come in. So then you never have to worry about how long should I do this? How long should I play the scene? All you need to know is you acting out the scene, you are molding and shaping the life that you want. With every single inner conversation that you have. God, I look so bad. Ugh, I hate my life. You're molding and shaping your world. So why not mold and shape the world that you want? But you see, the thing is, we're scared. What if somebody thinks I'm crazy? Listen, I've got bats in the belfry and I am okay with them. Because when they communicate, I listen. Hey, Marjorie. Oh, look at you, Kelly. You're working on your fitness, right? So now if your SP works out too, if that's what you want in your SP, you're looking over at him, or you see him across from the crowded room, and he's bench pressing or doing whatever he does, and you're like, whew, them muscles be lovely. You see what I'm saying? Because you know when you step off the treadmill or the Stairmaster, you can imagine him saying, girl, that booty be fine. Do you see the whole point? It seems like it's madness. But if that's what you want your man to say to you, that you got a nice ass, well then, what are you going to say if he says it to you? Then that's what you act out. Oh, you look good in them jeans. Yes, that's it. That's the whole point of creating these scenes. But do you see now, when you create these kinds of scenes, how they actually make you feel? You might laugh out loud, but let me tell you something. Even when you stop tonight or wherever you are, you're going to remember that scene and that man telling you how nice your ass looks in your pants. And he's your SP, so he can say that to you. And you be like, that's my man. I brought him to me. That's what you say to yourself, right? That's part of your imaginary scene as well. You sit back and you say, how'd I bring such a fine fella to me? Not only is he fine, but he's wealthy, he's smart, he's spiritual, he's a good daddy. Do you see what I'm saying? You list off all the things in your imagination that you love about him, and then you tell him. That's how you build your scene. That is how you build your scene, because now you don't have to think about, am I going to be happy? Build your scene around happiness. Build your scene around passion. And like I said, I know you'll be laughing. You know Angela crazy, but it'll become a part of your inner conversation and your mental diet, won't it? And then you will create it. That's the whole point, right? That's the beauty of it. Listen, Kelly, I know, because sometimes these scenes that I come up with, I'm just like, girl, right? But for me, that's the whole key. Method acting. Act it out. And then you never have to wonder about, am I in first person? Because you know how Neville tells you, climb the ladder in your imagination. Well, then that's what you do in your imagination. It may not be the ladder, but it may be the relationship. It may be the job, right? You get called into the office. What if you want more money in your job? Well, imagine yourself being called into your boss's office and hear your boss say, you know, you're a valuable employee. And I've watched you work so hard. And you know what? We as a company, we saw your efforts. We want to reward you, because you know how management talks, right? Management has to come and give you the big words and the rigmarole. So just imagine this. Kelly, you're a bad girl. Bad kitty. But you know what? It's awesome. But that's the whole point. Do it that way. But that's how you imagine your boss telling you, we value you as an employee. And we have two things for you today. So if you want a promotion, imagine yourself getting the promotion. Or if you just want a raise, imagine yourself getting a beautiful raise. Do you see? Yes, we value you as an employee. And as proof of our value, of your value to us, here's that magic number that you want in a raise. Or, you know what? We see you're a great leader of people. We like how you encourage your coworkers, and we think you'd be a great fit for the management team. So we're offering you this promotion. What say you? That is how you act out your scene for the promotion or the raise in your job. Because it's what you want. And when you want that and you feel it, when your boss says, yeah, we value you, that makes you feel good about yourself. That's how you build your scene. Build your scene according to how you want your life to play out. Because again, action. You are the director and the actor and the writer and the producer. And the Oscar goes to, you see what I'm saying? That is the pinnacle of an actor's career. The Oscar or the SAG award, doesn't matter. So what is the pinnacle of our existence? Manifested desires. Right? That's what it does. So get in there and manufacture that scene and play it out. Throw your whole self into that scene. Because Neville tells you time, times, and a half. Because that's the question we all have. How long do I have to do it? Time, times, and a half. But if you're too busy having fun creating the scene, time goes by like that. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I have a man now? And you're like, you're in shock because you just met the man you created. Or you hear and you see and interact with the people who think that you're beautiful. Or you get the promotion and the raise. But act it out. Does that make sense? And so if you are doing these scenes, if you're acting these things out, because you're walking down the grocery store and all of a sudden, because you're thinking about your SP, right? You're walking down the grocery store and you're like, yeah, we need cheesies. And he whispers, oh, these pregnancy cravings, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Things like that, right? Or you're driving into work and you go, yeah, I'm a valued employee. I got a great promotion because they know they need me. You see, these inner conversations that you have are always focused on the current desire. And once that current desire manifests, move on to the next one, but have a singular focus. Now, that's a very good question, Marjorie. Isn't the mental diet supposed to help us with our reactions to the negative things? Negative things is a perception. What are you bringing to yourself? There's stuff out in the world, because there's stuff that you're not the only gardener, right? There's always somebody throwing seeds out about the place. So I understand the concept of having negative things. But if you are always focused on the creation of the desire that you want, right? How you want it to manifest, what is negative about that? Like for a reaction. Be more specific. Ask me this question in a different way. Because if you are busy and you're focused on manifesting your desire, you're not going to see or be shaken by negative things, because your mental diet and your inner conversations will tell you, because you already know from experience, that I'm the creator and I bring to me what I want. You see what I'm saying? Does that make a little bit more sense, Marjorie? But ask it to me in a different way and I'll give you an answer again. But that's how I interpret that question. We tend to sometimes look for negatives and positives. Oh, now, you see that? That's a good point. Like somebody coming and having a go at you for something they weren't happy about. Okay? The example I can give of this of myself was that time I was at the grocery store. Now I'm medically mask exempt, so I don't wear a mask. And because it is such a prevalent thing now, you can't even leave the house without somebody being an idiot and saying, "Where's your mask? Who do you think you are? Anti-masker." You know how they talk, right? So what happened to me that day? I said, well, nobody better tell me nothing because I'm ready for a fight. And you see what happened? I went to the grocery store, and this man and his wife were like, who do you think you are? Where's your mask? Where's your child's mask? You see? So nobody can come to you, Marjorie, unless you call them. So again, if your focus, right, is if you want to say, you know what, when I leave my house, I have good interactions, that would mean your inner conversation would be something like, hey, or nice to see you, or what a pleasure it is to see you, or have a good day, or just somebody being polite and saying hi. Or somebody who says, you know what, I'm not upset with you. I'm just upset in general. Do you see what I'm saying? The difference here is? So the focus would be on creating what kinds of interactions you want. Right? That's the key here. What kinds of interactions do you want when you set foot outside your door? You create those as well. Howdy, neighbor. Right? Or, you only encounter pleasant and nice people. Does that make sense, Marjorie? Because nobody can come for you unless you call them. So how are you calling them? Are you calling the nice and pleasant ones over because you're having that kind of an inner conversation? But that's it. States don't leave, Marjorie. We slip in and out of them, right? We slip in and out of them willingly or unwittingly. So even though you're focusing on all the right things, it's not just a focus on the right thing. It is, are you focused on the thing that you want in the way that you want? Then you are, I'm going to use your example again. For instance, if you're in the grocery store, if you're at the mall and somebody's being rude, you don't have to even, what's the word? You're so engrossed in your inner conversation that somebody has to go, Marjorie, I'm talking to you. They have to snap you out of it, right? Because you're so fully engrossed and engaged in who you are in your mental diet and inner conversation that you don't even see that. You get it? Does that make a little bit more sense? Because your inner conversation, you're walking along and you're just having that inner conversation with yourself. And should you encounter someone who is mean and nasty, there's nothing to react to. There's nothing to do other than to remind yourself, I see where this person is coming from. I see what kind of mental diet they're having. They're always primed for a fight. And the way to diffuse that, keep on moving. You choose to engage in the things that line up with what you want in your life. So if you're not primed for a fight all the time, then you're not going to encounter people who are going to bring fights to you. And you see, the interesting thing, sometimes I don't like touching on things like this, but we must if we're going to understand why. As Black women, sometimes we're always told we got to work harder, we got to prove ourselves. And you always got to be on the defensive because nobody's going to defend you. We're always told things like that. But your inner conversation, you see, that's not your inner conversation. That's not your world. It may have been at one point. You understand? It may have been at one point. Because as Neville always said, you're not the only person in the world. You got the news, you got radio, you got TV, and all these people are saying something. So if your inner conversations are such that then people start to sprinkle these kinds of salacious thoughts because you know they are, right? They get you all riled up. Then people start to sprinkle those things in there. they do not line up with, I have a peaceful life. I have joy in my heart. I encounter joyous things. And because the news doesn't line up with that, then it is easily rejected. Believe me, I know, I get it, I understand. So my inner conversation always has to be one of, whew, I'm having such a great day. I'm having so much fun with my child. So that, because it is very easy to fall into that old state of feeling like you always got to fight your way out of something. And that's the truth. If you feel like you always got to fight, then you will always encounter one, because that is the inner conversation you're having with yourself. Does that make some kind of sense? Yeah. So just make sure those inner conversations are focused on what it is you want to experience, because you are the one shaping your experience. So if you know that you are shaping beautiful experiences and hanging out with good people and you laugh all the time and you're like a duck, the water just rolls off your back because you're not reacting to life. You're not reacting to life. We don't react to life. We create life. Does that make sense? So we don't have to react, because Neville says, remember, if you are in a particular state and somebody else is also in that state, like the thief and the person who's afraid of being robbed, well, what do you think happens? That's right. Those two people are going to meet. So be in a state of, I am. And sometimes if I don't have a desire at that time, that's what I do. So how do you deal with those circumstances, Cynthia G? You walk around with the knowledge that nobody can come to you unless you call them. You walk around with the understanding that I am. And because I am, I dictate what I want in my world. And you can cherry pick what you want. I want happiness. I want a good laugh. I want to interact with beautiful people. And you have those kinds of inner conversations, right? Or some people call them affirmations, right? Because if you are in a state of knowing that you have the power to dictate who you are, then when you see something, this is why Neville says it is easy to say, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Because when you see someone acting a fool, you know why they're acting a fool, because you can tell what state they're in. And then what you can do is to see them in the state they actually want to be in. You know what? This person seems like they would like to be in a loving state, a state of acceptance of self, a state of peace. You know what? Then be in that state. And you know what you say? Rise. Take up your bed and walk. And you see them in that state. That's how you deal with that circumstance, Cynthia. Yes, because when you see it, you're like, ooh, I know I can recognize that kind of state, right? And then you see the best for them. Use your imagination lovingly on behalf of others as well as yourself. This is how we deal with those circumstances, right? So that you are not easily swayed and manipulated, because it's telepathy. That's how the thief and the person stolen from will meet. It's telepathy, right? That's pretty much what it is. Does that make sense? Remember law number 5. Every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. So if the cause is creating resistance, go to the effect. This is how we get rid of resistance. Go to the effect. The effect is, what do you want? And if you give me an example, Cynthia, I'll elaborate. But that's what you do. Don't look at, ooh, that's hard. Don't look at that. Look at, what do I want? It is considerably easier to embrace what you want. It is easier to smell the rose, right? That's what it is. Smell the rose. Don't worry about the thorns. The thorns are the resistance. If that makes sense. But like I say, if you give me an example on how to train it when there's resistance, what kind of resistance are you dealing with here in a particular situation, so I can give you a real-time example, because that's how I work best. Right? But resistance, and even the word, it is a word, like in the Matrix yesterday, it is a word, but it is what the word implies. So you want to be the top sales agent on your team without having experience? Oh, honey, you have plenty of experience, right? Now, here's how you have plenty of experience. In your imagination, again, you want to be top sales? You have that interaction with whoever is going to award that to you, right? So you're going to get the award for top sales. So you say, good morning, Cynthia, can you come to my office, please? And you walk in and you say, yes. And they say, you know what? We've noticed, according to the numbers, you've got top sales. And here's your reward. Whatever the top salesman will get as a reward is what you imagine yourself getting. But hear and interact with that. Well, here, Cynthia, you know what? We've been looking at the numbers, and you haven't been here that long, but wow, you are an impressive salesperson. You're our top salesperson. And they're looking at the numbers and going down and telling you how incredible you are as a salesperson. So there is no resistance there. Not one shred of resistance, because you want to hear that you are the top. So if you want to hear that you're the top, you've got to hear it. Hear it. How does it make you feel? Interact with it. Act it out. When you're getting your shower, the water's pouring down on you. Wow, you know, Cynthia, that's amazing. What are you doing? You're out there and we've got people who've been here longer than you, and you're blowing them out of the water. See, when you're walking into work, that's what you hear. When you're eating your breakfast, that's what you hear. And you can say to yourself, I eat their tears in my cereal. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm the best. And not only am I the best, I teach others how to be the best. That's the inner conversation you have with yourself, because it is the end result. That's why there's no resistance for the end result. You're getting resistance because you can't see how it's possible. It doesn't have to be possible for them. It only has to be possible for you. So when you're telling yourself, yeah, I am the best. Why am I the best? Because I said I am. How is that confirmed? Where's my evidence that I'm the best? Well, my boss just told me I was the best, and he showed me the numbers. Play that out in your imagination. Every single scene that you can come up with that confirms that I, Cynthia, am the top in my department. And I got the numbers to back it up. People are coming to me for pointers on how to teach them. That's how you create your scene. Oh, look at you, Cynthia. That's a good question, because I too am right there. Oh, yes, I love my student loans, don't I? Same thing. Get into your imagination and imagine opening up the letter. You understand? Because, you know, when you've paid off zero, Neville had someone who did that. In their ledger, they wrote zero for their outstanding debt. They just wrote zeros, $0.00. They didn't owe any money. That's what they wrote in their ledger, in their imagination every time. So for you, However, the government's going to contact you, right? So they probably will send you a letter, right? Oh, hey, they're going to write you a letter and they're going to say, we're writing this letter to inform you, because you get one every tax season with your interest and blah, 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 right? So the natural thing to do would be to open a letter. So you open that letter and it reads, Dear Cynthia, we are writing to confirm with you that your student loan is at $0.00. Should you require further assistance, please contact our office. That's what you're going to hear. Right, Cynthia? That's what you're going to hear about your student loan. So now what you can also imagine is, because, you know, we have parents, right? You can imagine your mother saying, wait, you paid that off already? You can hear her saying that. Now you can also imagine, well, now that I don't have debt, this is nice. This feels real good. I don't owe nobody any money. That's part of the things, part of the scenes that you can create to confirm, right, that you are at $0.00. Always the scene must confirm, the inner conversation must confirm $0.00. That makes sense, right? Good, because this is, look, this is what I do every day too. Don't fret. Don't you fret. Aditya, hi, nice to see you. You made it. But yeah, that's what you do. And that's where the inner conversation is so important, right? Because a myriad of people, because you know, you go to school with people and they tell you things, right? You can hear your classmates saying, what? How did you manage that? How did you scrimp and save? And you're thinking to yourself, scrimp and save? No, honey. I called those things that were not into being as though they were. That's what you say. I called it into being. That's what you say. I called it into being. That's right. I called my $0.00 balance into being. I don't owe nobody nothing. So that's the kind of inner conversation you can have with yourself about that kind of thing. Like there's so many options that you can use, but all of them have to do the same thing. Confirm that your student loan is paid in full. You can see it in your letter from the government, paid in full. And you know, when you paid in full, they will write you and tell you, perhaps there's a new class you'd like to take. Offering you money, offering you student loan money, right? Because that's what they do. So anything like that in your imagination, that confirms, right? Julie, you know what? There is a lot of ease, to be honest with you, because I've noticed that myself. I've noticed that I'm not so scattered about whatever my desires are. And it doesn't matter where I'm at. If I'm driving or if I'm cooking dinner or I'm washing the dishes, automatically my mind goes to a scenario and I'm having a conversation in my head and the desire is fulfilled, because that's what the conversation is. It's a confirmation of the fulfilled desire. That's been so much easier that I've noticed, for sure. And all it is really is practicing. Yes, deciding what you want to think about is effective because you're in control. You're the one steering that horse and buggy, right? Exactly. You don't let the horse just run wild. You're trying to get to a destination and he's all over the place. No, you direct the horse and carriage where you want it to go. And that way you get where you're going. And then another thing I've noticed, Julie, is that I don't worry. I don't fret so much, if that makes sense. I'm not like, oh, am I doing this right? Or, ooh, like I don't get like that. Like that's way less, because my focus now is just simply in the end. just simply focusing on the end and not just what if or what could go wrong. Like I'm not even there. Yeah, like that's oh. And if you want to know what we're talking about, there's the other video, your inner conversations. Today is day 4, Julie. Or is it day 3? Girl, I don't remember what day it is. For like Tuesday, I thought it was Thursday already. Okay, so I don't even know. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about when you physically make that decision to control your inner conversation, but not control as in demand what you want to be, but to control as in you guide and tell it where you want it to go. Neville says the subconscious takes things by persuasion. You see? Persuasion rather than force. So not to control, but you're telling yourself, you know what? I'm focusing on the fulfillment of my desire. And so this is where I'm at. So that's what we're talking about here from the other video. Yeah. But I hope that made some sense today, where we don't have to be so humdrum and serious about acting out our desires. It's easy to act out the desire because it's what you want. It's what you want. It's what you want. And wanting it, Neville says, well, scripture says, when you pray, if you believe that you have what you prayed for, it shall be given unto you. So your prayer is your desire. So then claim it. That reminds me, I got a scripture for y'all, because that's how we roll up in here. I think about you guys all day, every day. Why? Because I'm always teaching somebody in my head. Right? That's me. I'm always teaching somebody. And it's usually me that I'm teaching. Exactly. Jeremiah. Here's Proverbs 19:21. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but let me start over. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. One more time, let me read it to you. Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Who's the Lord? You're the Lord. And what is your purpose? Your purpose is your desire. And what does it say? Many are the plans in a person's heart, but the one that you are persistently focused on is the one that prevails. It's the one that you see. Huh? That's your scripture for today. Cynthia says, so what slows the process of your desires? What slows the process? It's not necessarily a slow or speed up. It is it natural? Remember back in the very beginning of this video, I said the next step, the natural progression. So for instance, if you're a tenant and you're renting, well, then the natural progression from there, if you're going to have a desire, it would be to own. So it's not that the desire to own will be slowed down, right? That's not it. It's more along the lines of, have you been naturally in the state of wanting to own versus being in the state of renting? That's why Neville says it is the frequency that you are in that scene. Because the more frequently you're in it, this is why I tell you, you just spend your life imagining. The more frequently that you're in that scene, the more natural that state becomes. And thus you create from that state and you manifest from that state, and it is easy peasy. So it's not a delay or a slow down. It's that natural progression. How long have you been in that state? Right? How long have you been in that state? Especially, you don't want to contradict your state. I just told you that scripture. It is the Lord's purpose that prevails. The state that you are in naturally is the one that always manifests everything from itself. You can only recreate what you already are. Does that make sense? But again, Cynthia, if you give me an example, there's no delay here. There's no delay. There really isn't a delay. Because it's not that the thing has delayed. It's how long have you been in the state that you're in, or the state of your desire? How long have you been in that state of desire? That particular state. Because that particular, Neville calls it your home state. You revert back to that state. So if you're coming from a state of, oh, I don't have enough, but today you feel, oh, I feel wealthy today, but you still look in your account and there's only $10 in it. Does that mean you've been delayed? No. It means your home state for manifesting wealth has not been developed. Because again, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. That home state that you live in all the time, that is so natural to you, will bring you manifestations like that, because that's where your power is. Esther Hicks calls it momentum. That's where your momentum is. You see? Yes, Jeremiah, thinking from, not of. And this is why when you are in your imaginal scene, when you're acting it out, you're living in the end. So if you're living in the end, you're from it. You're not just, oh, I would love a new car. I really would love a new car. But if you, on the other hand, in your imagination, you're driving that car and you're honking that horn, you're from. You're thinking from. Because you're living it. Does that make sense? But that scripture right there, yeah, and there you have it, my dear darling. You see, Cynthia, when we sit down and we think about these things sometimes, all you've got to do is be objective. Just simply observe. So it's not that it was delayed, my dear sweet Cynthia. You were getting exactly what you were focused on. You were getting exactly those inner conversations. You were molding and shaping your life based on, and okay, we're gonna cut out one thing today. We don't say right or wrong anymore. We don't look at life as right or wrong. You either are focused on what you want or what you don't want. There's no right or wrong, right? No right or wrong. No. Okay? It is the Lord's purpose that prevails. So whatever it is, that imaginal act that you, Neville says, an assumption persisted in will harden into fact. So if your assumption is, Oh, this third party is always in the way. I can't get rid of this third party. Well, the third party becomes like a rash, honey. It just doesn't go away no matter how much ointment you put on it. Right? Because that's where your attention is. And if your attention is on the third party, you're always going to be creating the third party. So that's why I say we are always manifesting. We are always having those inner conversations. Always. So whatever it is that you're telling yourself in your inner conversation, the evidence would suggest, because signs follow, they don't precede, you were creating it. So it's not that your desire was delayed. You weren't focused on your desire. So now, to focus on your desire, every imaginal act that you have, every scene that you want to conjure, has to be the fulfillment of your desire. It has to be, honey, you know what? My feet hurt. They're swollen. Can you rub them? You see? Because it says you're married and you're pregnant, your feet are swollen, you probably have cravings, and he's a good man because he says, honey, put them right here. Let me rub them for you. Better yet, let me kiss them and make them all better. Do you see? Your imaginal acts all have to confirm the same thing, that you are in the relationship you want to be in, Cynthia. You don't have time to be worried about somebody else because they're not worried about you. They're not. We see, listen, I read it somewhere. We seem to think when we get caught up that people care. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. You care. You care. And because you care, your time, efforts, and energy are in those imaginal acts that confirm the fulfillment of your desire. Does that make sense, Cynthia? Yes. So if perhaps you are in the bathtub and you're soaking in bubbles and rose petals, and you say, oh, honey, how did you know I needed this today? That's your inner conversation. Have a conversation with that man. He's sitting there looking at you in the bathtub, and you say, how did you know I needed this today? You are so in tune with me. That's the conversation you have with him. Where's the third party? Nowhere to be seen. Right? So your imagination is I don't even have the word, but your imagination is your savior. Be as children, imitators of God. You see? You know, a child can sit there and play in the corner and laugh for hours on end. And you will sit there looking at that child like they crazy. But that's what we got to do. You want that desire, then you conjure up. And like I said before, whatever you conjure up, you're going to take part in. Because it's you. You want this to happen, then you better play your part. You better play your part. Then the director says, action! You jump into that scene and you own that scene. Angelina Jolie don't have nothing on you. You own that scene. Think about it. Think about it. You go to the theater or the movies, and an actor comes on the screen and they convince you that what you're watching is real. And you believe it. Well, you have the exact same capability of acting out something to such a degree that you convince yourself that it is real. That is what Neville says. All you must do is convince yourself that it is real. That is your imagination. We can spend our time convincing ourselves that somebody hates us. And truth of the matter is they don't even care that you exist. But then think about it. The same energy you want to use to convince yourself that somebody doesn't like you, Well, it takes far less energy to convince yourself that everybody loves you. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you're going to use your imagination, Neville says good, bad, or indifferent, use your imagination, but use your imagination lovingly on behalf of yourself and others. Do you see it? Use it lovingly. So if you're using it lovingly, that means you are simply confirming the desire fulfilled, which means you are living in the end. So I trust that we all had a great time this afternoon. I'm looking outside the window and it's gray in the skies. But the rain hasn't started yet, so I still have time to make it out to the car before the rain comes down. Yes, Jeremiah, lovingly, always lovingly. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to throw this one in here before we all go. Because revision, what if something doesn't go the way you want it to go? Well, Neville says to revise it. But what does revise mean? Revise means act it out the way it should have gone. So you see, again, it all comes full circle. But the thing with us is we like to separate, we like to fragment, and we like to make it all into bite-sized pieces. But sooner or later, you're going to have to understand we can't stay at this level. We have to rise, people. We have to rise to that level. Because if you see in the Bible, every time Jesus healed somebody, what did he say? Rise, pick up your bed and walk. You can't keep breaking down consciousness into little tiny pieces so that you can grasp it. You must elevate you. Well, how do you elevate you? By understanding and accepting the fact that you are consciousness and that you have the power to create or the power to destroy. That is what you've got to start doing. So that all these things that seem so pressing will begin to make sense. You will be able to look at somebody and see the evidence in their lives and understand why. Not how it happened, but why it happened. We must rise to that level. How do you rise? Shoot, just accept that you are consciousness. One of these days I'll do a live on that. But we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. And when I tell you I spend a lot of time just talking to myself, I'm asking questions and I get answers. Right? Because yes, like you, I'm learning. We all are learning. But again, there comes a point in our lives when we must accept. How do you accept? You know, when the publishing clearinghouse rings your doorbell and he has a check outside and you open the door and he's got the balloons and the flowers. You're like, oh my God, oh my God. What are you going to do? Shut the door in his face and say, I'm sorry, the party you're trying to reach is currently unavailable. Are you going to say that? Or are you going to say, oh, for me? Why, thank you. Come on in. Let me make you some tea. We'll talk all about it. That is how you accept what you are. That is how you accept that you are consciousness. Consciousness determines what it will be because it already is. But I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Because if I start, y'all are never going to leave. So with that, my beautiful people, thank you for spending time with me again today. I trust, I know that I've helped you to be bold in creating your scenes. Because now you know that your scenes, every time you create a scene and you're walking somewhere and you're thinking and you're acting out that scene, You know that you're living in the end. And you know that as long as you persist in the assumption, then it must harden into fact. You understand? There you go. Oh, I don't even know who you are. This is the first time I'm meeting you. Well, hello, darling. I am Jad92. Yes, and you know, it is true. We must persist in those imaginary acts because we are the four mighty ones: producer, author, director, and actor. And if you want that Oscar, well, then you better play your part. Play your part. Doesn't matter how strange or crazy you think it is. You want that job, then you get called into the office and you have that conversation that you got it. You want that SP, then you tell him or you tell her how glad you are there in your lives every day, all day. You hold their hand, you squeeze their hand, you smell the small of their neck. That's what I'm saying. Live the life you want in your imagination, people. Because imagination creates reality. Yes, it does, doesn't it? It does. So, anywho, my beautiful people, I will see you again in the next live, right? Indeed. If there are more questions, the zing in your zazzle, oh my God, you guys are awesome. Ms. M, I think I heard my father, actually, because the only child's voice in my house is my child's, and I know his voice, but then I'm hearing a man's voice in my house. That's my father. So, go forth and be bold. And like Neville says, walk on the water, people. Your desire is calling you. Your promotion, Cynthia, is calling your name and say, come here, Cynthia. That's what your desire is saying. So get out of the boat and walk on the water. Don't look down, because if you look down, you're going to sink. What does that mean? It means persist in your imaginary act until your assumption hardens into fact. I do love you. I don't know. You know how you're talking to your SP and you don't want to say, you know, somebody says, okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And they say, yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night. And you sit there and you're like, yeah, good night. Good night. And nobody hangs up. That's what I feel right now. That is exactly how I feel. Oh my God, that's so bad. But yes, Marjorie, rest well, my sweet lady. Julie, Jeremiah, Cynthia, Ms. M, you go, girl. I'm trying to remember who else was here. Callie, all you guys. And I will give a shout out to Shine Bright, who is asleep. And so you guys, totally, you always make my day. And I never want to leave you, but I must, so that I can have something new to teach on the next live. So I must leave you. So anyway, if you have questions that you didn't ask, you know how to find me, right? You can Instagram me. All that's on my about page. You can email me, Instagram me, Facebook me, right? I'll be here. But above all things, trust in yourself. You can create that imaginary act as well. Wow, I didn't know I had this kind of insight. I didn't know I was this intuitive. That's how you talk to yourself. Okay, now I'm really going to go. Okay, I do love you. And thanks again for coming out today. Much love.